What's up, everybody? Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. This is Jimmy Faluca reporting with Frank. Frank, how was your holiday, buddy?
Very good. Merry Christmas.
All right. Frank came to me earlier today and said that, you know what, Jimmy, we should put together a final episode for 2014, and I agreed, and here we are. I hope everybody enjoyed their year and their holiday. We had a lot of things happen in wrestling this year, Frank. The year started off with CM Punk walking out, the WWE Network, Daniel Bryan getting his moment, the streak ending, the Shield breaking up, Bryan getting injured, Brock Lesnar becoming champion, the Authority being in and out of power. We've had the likes of Seth Rollins and Bray Wyatt and Dean Ambrose get the main events lately, and Dolph Ziggler. What do you have to say about some of these young guys closing out the shows?
It's a much-needed move. It's a natural progression.
Absolutely. I think that's been a breath of fresh air since Hell in a Cell. We've had new established stars close the shows. I think we need to continue to see more of that. And, last night's Raw was surprisingly excellent. I really enjoyed the program. How about you?
It was good. It was above average compared to the last month's worth of Raws, which were worthless.
I think you're being kind on that one, Frank.
Yeah, I mean, after Survivor Series, I guess something happened with the locker room, as we're reading about, and it was really crap.
Yeah, that's the big story that's been out lately. That the main roster has been the main roster has not been happy because the NXT shows have been outperforming them, and I guess it's starting to bleed through that the guys are starting to care of whether their performance shines through or not. I mean, I think that that's something that's been sorely missing from the product in quite a long time, that these guys are actually starting to care about their work rate because the developmental guys are blowing them out of the water. And you got guys down in developmental like Adrian Neville, you have Hideo Itami, a.k.a. Kenta, Kevin Owens, a.k.a. Kevin Steen, and then you got Finn Balor, who's Prince Devitt, who, I don't know where you sit, he's my favorite on the roster, and then now you have the NXT champion, Sami Zayn, who we know as El Generico. These guys have really come into their own down there, and I have to say, by far, NXT is my favorite WWE show to watch on a weekly basis.
Well, it's what we always talk about, competition, There's no competition, even though Vince McMahon says, we compete against everybody, but wrestling competition, you have to compete against wrestling. You have to measure yourself against wrestling, another wrestling company,
Absolutely. And TNA is not competition. They're not even close.
I mean, those guys are good, but it's just a poorly run show. There's no organization in that show, and you can't measure yourself against TNA.
Not at all. But I have to say, the NXT shows. I have, and you're hearing from a guy that comes on here, and 9 times out of 10, I have negative things to say about the product. And let me speak on behalf of Frank and myself, because I think he'll back me on this. We want to enjoy the product. We want to enjoy the shows we watch. We don't just come on here to complain about things for the hell of it. We turn on the television with an open mind that we're going to try to enjoy the show. It's not our fault if they put on a bad product. Frank, what do you have to say to that?
Well, I think that's every hardcore fan. We right now it's like most people just keep watching just in hope that it'll get better and better.
Exactly, that's the thing. But yes, there has been apparently there's a power struggle going on in WWE between Triple H and Vince McMahon and Kevin Dunn, with one side being Triple H and the other being Vince McMahon and Kevin Dunn. I think personally, this is my personal opinion. I personally think Vince McMahon is out of touch. I think he's been out of touch for the last few years, and I think his way of doing business is dead. Because with him being in charge, they haven't been able to break 1 million subscribers on this network. So that tells me that they're not getting the viewers that they need.
They still don't have.
They have not broken 1 million.
Wow.
And the investors were pissed because the deal was they were going to have at least 1 million subscribers. And I guarantee you, a year from now, if things continue the way that they're being booked right now, they still won't have 1 million subscribers.
Right. Well, like I always say, there's only so many hardcore fans that are willing to pay.
Yeah, but a lot of people are not willing to pay, Frank, because the shows have not been consistently good. You have to. As an entertainment-based product, you have to. You're not
going to even watch the network. Like myself, I guess I could say I'm a hardcore fan. I don't subscribe to the network because what am I really going to watch? Same material. You could probably watch some stuff on YouTube. It's like you're not going to devote your life to it. And again, the pay-per-views you can always watch over somebody's house.
Which you always do because you're here.
Right. Well,
no, but like I said, the way for them to bring in more subscribers is to make the shows more must-see. They have to make the shows more compelling. They have to make the shows friendly for everybody, not just the toddlers and the women. They have to make it good for everybody. And I think that's one of the unsung things that made wrestling hot in the 90s, in that it wasn't just the women and the children that enjoyed it. It was everybody. And I think if you have something for everybody, it's a slam dunk success. What do you have to say to that?
Well, I think that's what Vince McMahon tries to do. And I don't think he's out of touch. I just think since they went public, he has to do things differently.
Well, they were a publicly traded company in the year 2000, Frank, and from 2000 to 2004, that show was incredible. So they had investors, and they were publicly traded then. What happened to me, in my opinion, what happened was, after the Benoit and Eddie Guerrero deaths, they went out of their way to be politically correct so they wouldn't have any bad publicity. And I think that was the death nail to WWE being fun to watch. Because I can tell you something right now. In 2007, 2008, I was hooked. I loved wrestling. I enjoyed watching it. I never complained. From 2009 on, my eyes opened.
Well, Jim, you can't, let's look at it. There's guys dying every month almost, younger than 40, 45, and you got to really step back and look at why these guys are dying.
Well, Chris Benoit died because he had multiple concussions that he did not take care of, and that led to him doing what he did. Eddie Guerrero died because of a life of drugs and alcohol.
But all these guys died because of drugs and alcohol. Why is that? That's what you got to look at. What's causing this?
What ended up causing them was injuries that they suffered in the business, but injuries come with the game. It's a physical entertainment program. So what has to happen is, to avoid things like this, when guys are injured, they have to have adequate time to rest.
Right, and you can't have crazy high spots.
See, my thing is this, Frank. I loved ECW when I was younger, but I don't need flaming tables, barbed wire, and hardcore matches every week. I don't even need them every month.
No, it loses its luster.
What I think that the violence should be brought out with is the blowover, the end of a feud. That's how it was always done in the 70s and the 80s. You would have a feud, and at the very end, you would lock the guys in the cage and let them beat the crap out of each other. Perfect example, Magnum TA and Tully Blanchard. You remember that feud?
Yes.
It was an amazing feud. The matches were great. The promos were heated. And the only way that their feud ended after so many wrestling matches with Baby Doll interfering and this, that, the other thing, was when they finally locked them in the cage where one guy had to say, I quit. To anyone that's watching this right now, I would strongly suggest, and Frank more than likely agrees, look up Magnum TA versus Tully Blanchard Steel Cage I Quit match. That match was brutal. That match was incredible. It's one of my all-time favorite cage matches. It's on the Starrcade DVD if you own it. The WWE produced Starrcade DVD, it's on there, and it's worth the watch. But the point I'm trying to make is, you don't need violence all the time, because if you do it all the time, eventually you're going to get caught. What I say is, you save that stuff for the end of a feud. You save that for the end, the climax. You don't need violence in every match. But if there's a feud that's been going on for 5, 6, 7 months, at the very end, you throw caution to the wind. You lay it all out on the line, like Taker says. Would you agree with that at the very least?
Oh, exactly. It doesn't even have to be every feud. It just is.
No, the main feuds, the major feuds, the ones that are drawing the people in.
It's the feuds that take on a life of their own.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like the Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose feud, that's how you end a feud. That's what a Hell in a Cell match is supposed to be. A Hell in a Cell match is supposed to be violent. It's supposed to be brutal. And that's what that cage match was. I look back to last year when Daniel Bryan and Randy Orton had their Hell in a Cell match. That match sucked. And I love Daniel Bryan, and I think Randy Orton's multi-talented. But even I will admit, that match was horrible. The psychology of that cell match wasn't even present. But Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins, unbelievable Hell in a Cell match. The best Hell in a Cell match I've seen since the end of an era at WrestleMania 28. But we're getting off topic. Frank and I want to discuss Monday Night Raw. And Frank and I were just saying, before we got on camera, that was a very good show. Frank, go ahead. You got the floor until you run out of breath. Go ahead. I'm listening.
Well, I think the main highlight of last night's show was the Seth Rollins Roman Reigns match, which was unexpected. That they do that on for free, and I really was willing to tune that match to see Roman Reigns, and even though the crowd was a little quiet, but I wouldn't say they were dead.
No, they weren't.
What?
No, they were not. They weren't dead. Not for him.
No, and that was one of the first matches in a while that I watched without fast forwarding, and I too was quiet. I was I was quiet but intrigued. I just wanted to see everything. But what that match told me is that Seth Rollins, he's the man right now.
Absolutely. To me, he's the superstar of the year because that guy's been putting in work. And let me tell you something. He reminds me of a young Triple H who is talented, but a nasty little motherfucker that you just wanted to see him get his ass kicked. And sometimes I remind myself, you know what, you kind of don't want to see him get his ass kicked because he's so good in that ring. But I catch myself at times saying, geez, I hope someone grabs this little bastard because he's good at what he does. Go ahead, continue.
You want to know who I think he reminds me of?
Who does he remind you of?
He reminds me of a mix of Macho Man and Shawn Michaels.
Wow, now that is a hell of a comparison, and I have to say that's
he has
he kind of reminds me of Shawn with the athleticism. See, Macho Man to me, nobody could compare to him because he was, even though he wasn't big, you knew that Macho was the kind of guy that would rip your head off. He was Macho was tough enough to where even though he couldn't lift 500-pound giants, he would find a way to rip that giant's head off because that's just how he was, like a pit bull, Macho Man.
Right. Seth has that he tells a story in the ring.
Yes, he does.
And he's athletic as can be.
Yes.
You know, and he combines athleticism with his moves, and each move means something. You know, just not
absolutely.
Like Dixon who does an acrobatic move just for the sake of doing it. It means something.
Absolutely. You know? And I will say though, I did enjoy that match. I really did, and. The finish, I didn't care for because, you know, who...
We knew it wasn't going to be...
no, of course not, because they were going to protect both guys, which is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to protect your wrestlers. But it's like you're supposed to not be happy about that finish because you're enjoying it. So they kind of did what they were supposed to do. They left you wanting more. They left you wanting more, which is what they're supposed to do. You're not supposed to want to see less of Monday Night Raw. You're supposed to want to see more. But go ahead, what else? What other part of Monday Night Raw did you find intriguing and interesting?
Well, I didn't really like the fact that how Ziggler went down. You know, he's supposed to be getting big push. They don't protect him, and obviously that was also to make Ryback come out, and also Ryback's promo was pretty interesting. I liked that he opened up like we talked about. You know. He spoke to the real person, and even though it wasn't the best promo, but
it was his best. It was his best promo thus far.
And you like to see stuff like that.
Absolutely. See, I'm wearing my Ryback shirt right now, and I bought this shirt, I would say, around 2 months ago. The reason Ryback won me over is this. At one point he was over, then they turned him heel, then no one cared about him, and then the second he came back with the Feed Me More, the people loved him again.
I didn't know about his broken leg.
I didn't know either. And you want to know something? Ryback proved, to me, he proved that if you allow these guys to shoot from the heart and not have to read off a stupid script, you will get the people to care about them. Whenever Sheamus or The Miz are cutting a scripted, or Cena, if any of those guys are cutting a scripted promo, I'm sitting here like this, like, yeah, why do I care about what's coming out of your mouth?
Because it feels like they are reading off.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. There's no feeling to it. Ryback made you feel like he was pouring his heart out to you. And he had my attention. He had my attention for the entire time. And let me tell you something, Frank. If they are smart, which we know that they can be, Ryback should be the one to beat Rusev, but they got to do it at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I think that'll happen.
And we'll get into that later on, but I think Ryback is the perfect guy to take down Rusev. Unless Cesaro was going to magically get over, I would say Cesaro. But that ain't going to happen. And we both know why. But Ryback is over enough with the crowd that if he's the one to take down... And I love the fact that he turned around and said, this isn't going to be another USA versus Russia thing. This is going to be a big guy kicking another big guy's ass thing.
Right.
I thought that his promo, for the skill that he's shown since he started, was brilliant. I think that it washed off the stench that CM Punk's podcast comments put on him. I mean, Punk's podcast comments didn't change how I feel about the guy, because he still got over after being in limbo for almost 2 years. Not everybody can do that. And I think that makes him special. Am I wrong?
He's definitely, there's money in him, they could get something out of him, and I think it's wise for him to go after the U.S. title.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that going after the mid-card titles before you go after the title is the way it should always be. It should always be that way.
The belt with the mid-card belts, and then sooner or later they'll get there.
Go for the heavyweight titles, because that's how it always was. You saw guys like Ultimate Warrior, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Steve Austin, The Rock, and the Macho Man. Their stepping stone to the WWF title was the Intercontinental title. And the guys in the NWA, the stepping stone to the NWA Championship was the United States title. That's how
TV title was important.
Absolutely. TV title was also a very big belt, held by guys like Dusty Rhodes and Booker T, Sting. That's how it's supposed to be. The mid-card titles, the problem that they have with the mid-card titles is they figure, okay, the guy's got the belt on, so he can lose on free television. You would never catch Mr. Perfect losing on free television when he was the Intercontinental Champion, or Honky Tonk Man. Not that Honky was the best, because personally I felt he was just a character. He still was cool for his time, but you would never catch the mid-card champions losing the way that Ziggler lost so many times as the Intercontinental Champion. But yes, I would love to see Ryback go after the United States. But another thing that interested me on Raw, without question, Daniel Bryan. I knew he was going to make some sort of announcement, and you know me because I love that guy. Ever since The Undertaker, ever since Undertaker started to slow down, Daniel Bryan has been my guy. And, he was another guy that he was not reciting scripted jargon bullshit. You could tell the guy was speaking from the heart. And when he made it seem like he had to retire due to a bad neck injury, I felt horrible. But the second he looked up at that camera and said no, I popped in my seat right here on the floor. I was saying, thank God he's starting to feel better. And that he's going to come back, because the show, I'm sure you'll share the same sentiment, even though his title run wasn't going necessarily well because of bad booking, the show has been lacking without him.
Right. It's funny, the Authority comes back on the same night.
Yeah, I personally feel that the Authority coming back kind of negates everything that was accomplished at Survivor Series. Personally.
Right. I think they're gonna do another angle. You see, they're lining up with Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman now.
Yes.
Now they're part of the Authority too, I guess.
I don't know about that, but you know,
I mean,
they were standing shoulder to shoulder, but I don't know what that necessarily means. I mean, Raw. Listen, anytime Raw ends with Cena laying on his back, I'm a happy guy because I hate that motherfucker.
I'm saying, if you notice, Paul Heyman has been.
Yes, he's been shaking Seth Rollins' hand, but I think, don't let that fool you. I think that Paul Heyman. Now we're talking in kayfabe as if this was real. Paul Heyman is not an idiot, and I think that when Seth Rollins least expects it, he's going to get dropped with an F5 because Brock knows he has that briefcase. Brock is not an idiot, and I think that Brock is looking over his shoulder at Seth Rollins.
Well, I think
Heyman is trying to lead Rollins into a false sense of security. But I'll tell you something.
I think Heyman is going to serve Brock Lesnar.
Not at all. Paul Heyman will never dump Brock Lesnar for Seth Rollins. But I will tell you this. I will tell you this. If Brock Lesnar indeed leaves WWE, Paul Heyman will be managing Seth Rollins in 6 months.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If they know Lesnar's going to leave, I think that'll be a perfect segue.
But then that makes Brock Lesnar a babyface. He broke the streak. He'll never be a hero.
He could be a babyface. He's getting cheered. I mean, come on, could you imagine?
He's getting cheered because he's been fighting Cena. You forget that. They could have Benito Mussolini. They could have Benito Mussolini and Adolf Hitler come back from the dead, and if they're fighting Cena, the American people are still going to cheer for them because they hate Cena.
I'm saying this. If Heyman turns on Lesnar, and then 6 months later, you can imagine Heyman is cutting a promo, and the Lesnar music comes on, and
the people will erupt. The people will erupt, and then all the hatred for the streak ending will be gone. But they're not going to do that with Brock. Brock's gone after WrestleMania. That's why he's going to do.
We'll see what happens. I think they'll mark my words. Heyman's going to be managing Rollins.
That's what I just said. In the next 6 months, he'll be managing Seth Rollins, and they're perfect for each other. Because Seth Rollins has that slimy, sneaky type feel to him. But before we continue, and I don't mean to go back to, but I just wanted to know, what did you think of the Daniel Bryan promo and his promise to be in the Rumble?
Well, I think it's great for the product, you know? They need as many stars back. It's great for Bryan, but does this mean Bryan's going to win the Royal Rumble? I don't know.
Well, I can tell you right now, if he's in, he's my pick. He is my pick. Because I've been advocating for this for a championship match to take place for the last. This is going on 2 years now. Brock Lesnar versus Daniel Bryan is the money match for them. Because I don't think, as much as I personally like Roman Reigns, and I do, I like all three guys in the Shield equally. I love Dean Ambrose, I love Seth Rollins, and I love Roman Reigns. All three of them are great in their own aspect. But I don't think Roman Reigns is ready to carry the weight of the WWE on his shoulders.
No, that's what I was saying about that match last night. He still needs...
He needs time. I think, Frank, personally, Frank, I think that the match that he needs to have is the match you've been asking for. The match with Cena. He needs to have a match with Cena and beat him.
Right.
But we'll get into that later on, guys. We're gonna take a little break here, and Frank and I are gonna discuss the CM Punk podcast as well as the Vince McMahon podcast when we get back.